Feeling a bit shaggy here today, so I thought it was a good time to talk about this, The Wolfman. The Wolfman from 1941, starring Lon Chaney Jr., part of the Universal Classic Monsters collection. Yeah, you know what this is about. It's a guy that gets bit by a wolf or werewolf and then becomes a werewolf. You know, this is the quintessential werewolf movie. Our lead actor here is Lon Chaney Jr., of course the son of Lon Chaney Sr. Now, Lon Chaney Sr., of course, he was the Man of a Thousand Faces, the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and a handful of others that made him like the horror movie icon that he was. And his son, Lon Chaney Jr., decided he wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and be a horror movie actor. He actually ended up portraying other classic Universal monsters in other films. I think he actually played Dracula at one time and Frankenstein's monster. This movie follows the story of Larry Talbot, who gets bitten by a werewolf and becomes a werewolf. It's kind of a character study of Larry Talbot himself. He's Welsh born, but he lives most of his life in the USA, and then this movie finds him returning to Wales upon the death of his brother, and then he goes back to the family estate, meeting with his father to like take over the estate and run the affairs of the legacy of his family. He's a very American. I have no idea where this was actually filmed, but I'm assuming it was like California somewhere. I have a hard time believing that this movie takes place in Wales. Like, none of the actors sound like they have any kind of a Welsh accent or... I mean, there's Claude Rains is in here, and he plays Larry Talbot's father, who's like 2 feet shorter than him, and way more English sounding. And as I understand correctly, the actor was there was only like 5 years difference in the actors' ages at the time of shooting. So I have trouble believing that that guy is his father. And then there's also like the local, I don't know if he's a sheriff or policeman or something, a childhood friend of Larry Talbot's, who apparently had been living in Wales the whole time, but sounds like the dude's from Texas. What? And even the female lead in here, her name is Gwen, she doesn't sound even British at all, let alone Welsh. Oh, and you get Bela Lugosi in here too. He's actually like a gypsy fortune teller kind of guy, and he has a really good scene. The woman goes in to get her fortune told, and he reads her palm and looks into the crystal ball and all this stuff, and he suddenly sees these signs, and he's like, "You must leave," and he has like a face palm kind of moment, like, "Oh my god." And she's like, "Oh, is everything okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, everything's fine, but you gotta get out of here, like right now." Turns out he's a werewolf, and he goes and he eats her and kills her. So Larry Talbot, who happens to be in the woods putting the moves on some Welsh woman who happens to be engaged to somebody else, he's out there in the woods putting the moves on her, hears this woman getting killed by a werewolf, goes and fights the wolf and clubs it to death with a silver cane, but he gets bitten, so thereby becoming a werewolf himself. And that's the plot of the movie. And then we get to see his like transformation, but not really. Like, you know, werewolf movies have always been known for their like transformation scenes, and we don't get that here. Not really. Like, there's the initial transformation. We see Larry Talbot lift up his pant leg, and his legs are super hairy, and then he stumbles out into the moonlight, and he's fully transformed, and he's in his Wolfman getup, which I always thought looked kind of stupid here. Basically, he just has like tufts of hair sticking out of his sleeves and some like weird gloves on with some claws on them. He's got a little button dog nose, hair on all over his face, and a really stupid looking afro. Like, you'd think, okay, well, if he's transforming, he's turning into a wolf or like a bestial form or whatever, he would just have like long hair, not like a permed afro kind of thing. Okay, it's 1941, right? This is like just right in the middle of World War II, or very close to the beginning of it for America anyway. But I guess, you know, we're expecting all those boys to go to war. We don't got room for long hairs, not even in our horror movies. I don't want to say that I was like disappointed in this movie, because I wasn't. I wasn't really expecting too much. Like, I wasn't expecting like effects like The Howling or American Werewolf in London or anything like that. It was kind of creepy and atmospheric, which I was expecting, but it got kind of boring in the middle. And one thing I noticed about it is that Larry Talbot, Lon Chaney Jr.'s character, is kind of a creepy dirtbag in this movie. He's supposed to be this refined gentleman. He goes into this shop and he's supposed to be very clever, intelligent, and very ambitious, I guess. But he basically stalks the shit out of this shopkeeper and like spies on her with a telescope and tries to ask her for a date several times, and you know, she says no 3 times, but then he still shows up, and so does she. I don't know, it all comes off seeming kind of rapey. And this is before he turns into a wolf. 1941, it was a different time, right? And men aren't expected to take no for an answer, or else they're not really men at all. I guess. I don't know. So that has a little bit of a disturbing message that way. But then, of course, you know, the whole thing turns into tragedy. So it has also that kind of moral lesson there. So somewhere in there, there's a message. But it was a message made for 1941, not for 2023. It kind of dragged in some parts, and I wasn't really all that satisfied with the actual amount of monster footage we got in here. We didn't even see the Wolfman really that much, and I guess for its time, it was pretty amazing stuff. And apparently the makeup work took hours and hours, like 10 hours to do. I gotta say, I didn't like it that much. I do recognize that this is a classic, though. You can't diss it too hard. So I'm going to have to go ahead and give The Wolfman, 1941, a C+. Yeah, I guess I was a little disappointed in this. I was expecting it to be a little bit more exciting, more memorable, but it doesn't have really any like iconic scenes in there. Larry Talbot's kind of an ass, so I didn't really relate to the characters that well, and also the fact that nobody had an authentic accent. And this was clearly shot on a soundstage. At least in my mind, The Wolfman gets a C+. I mean, it's no Teen Wolf. So until next time, stay safe out there, especially in the full moon. And have a good one, everybody.